Hey y'all, and welcome to Politibrawl. My name is Brian, and Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth team up to tear up the mainstream media right to their faces in this great press conference. Let's dive in.
All right, Kelly, go ahead. Here we go. There's another one.
Hello, sir. Thank you very much.
We got them all today.
Okay. So, Mr. President, you talked about expecting some on-the-ground assessments at Fordo and other sites.
Now
Is that Israeli and U.S.?
It's been obliterated, Kelly. It's been
What is your message then, sir, to the intelligence community when they present reports? You're not disputing the DIA report. You're just...
They presented a report that wasn't finished. We're talking about something that took place 3 days ago.
I understand that, sir.
The report was done 2 days ago. Wait a minute.
Yes.
They didn't see it. All they can do is take a guess. Now, if you take a look at the pictures, if you take a look how it's all blackened, you know the fire and brimstone is all underground because it's granite and it's all underground. You don't show it. But even there, with all of that being said, the whole area for 75 yards around the hole where it hit is black with fire. The group that's run by this gentleman, in fact, you may want to talk about it for a second because we're going to issue a report. And I think it's not even a very exciting report at this point. It's been obliterated, totally obliterated. And they did a report, but it was like, if you look at the dates, it's just a few days after it happened.
Sir.
So they didn't see it. They said it may be very severe.
Understood. Do you have a message for the intelligence community, though, in terms of unvarnished information getting to you, that it's not...
I don't really have a message. I would say issue the report when you know what happened. I wouldn't say that it could be severe or maybe not. They use the word severe. It could be severe or maybe it's not. And so people like you picked up and said, oh, it's not severe. No, the report was not a complete report. Yeah, the message was probably wait till you know the answer before you...
And sir, did you not have a public component to your Zelensky meeting for a tactical reason with President Putin?
Let him answer this one.
Hello, Mr. Secretary.
Yeah. There's a reason the president calls out fake news for what it is. These pilots, these refuelers, these fighters, these air defenders, the skill and the courage it took to go into enemy territory flying 36 hours on behalf of the American people and the world to take out a nuclear program is beyond what anyone in this audience can fathom. And then the instinct of CNN, the instinct of the New York Times is to try to find a way to spin it for their own political reasons, to try to hurt President Trump or our country. They don't care what the troops think. They don't care what the world thinks. They want to spin it to try to make him look bad based on a leak. Of course, we've all seen plenty of leakers. And what do leakers do? They have agendas. And what do? Do they share the whole information or just the part that they want to introduce? And when they introduce that preliminary report that's deemed to be a low assessment, you know what a low assessment means? Low confidence in the data in that report. And why is there low confidence? Because all of the evidence of what was just bombed by 12 30,000-pound bombs is buried under a mountain, devastated and obliterated. So if you want to make an assessment of what happened at Fordo, you better get a big shovel and go really deep, because Iran's nuclear program is obliterated. And somebody somewhere is trying to leak something to say, oh, with low confidence, we think maybe it's moderate. Those that dropped the bombs precisely in the right place know exactly what happened when that exploded. And you know who else knows? Iran. That's why they came to the table right away, because their nuclear capabilities have been set back beyond what they thought were possible because of the courage of a commander-in-chief who led our troops, despite what the fake news wants to say.
But you're not disputing the report said what it said, even though it was initial.
The report said what it said, and it was fine. It was severe, they think, but they had no idea. They shouldn't have issued a report until they did. But we've gotten the information. I think Pete said it better than you can say it. And, you know, you should be proud, you, especially you, should be proud of those pilots, and you shouldn't be trying to demean them.
No,
those pilots flew at great risk, a big chance that they'd never come back home and see their husbands or their wives. Let me just tell you, you and NBC, fake news, which is one of the worst, and CNN, New York Times, are all bad. They're sick. There's something wrong with them. Do you know what? You should be praising those people instead of trying to find some. By getting me, by trying to go and get me, you're hurting those people.
Man, Trump and Hegseth absolutely nailed this reporter, and there's a whole multitude of reasons why they're right. First off, the mainstream media, particularly CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post, all those organizations pretty much do for a living. In order to get money, they have to generate clicks. They have to make headlines. They have to question certain narratives and definitely not question other ones, because their audience, typically of rich white liberals, want to see the Trump administration fail. They wanted to see this attempt on the Iranian nuclear programs fail in some spectacular fashion. They would rather see helicopters burning in the desert than they would a successful attempt to make sure that the government of Iran does not ever come close to developing one of the most important and destructive weapons in human history. And the mainstream media kind of wants to see it fail. They do. Deep down, it's some disturbing thing here. And so Hegseth calls it out properly. Trump rightfully calls it out. But there's another direction we could go here, talking about leaked intel. First off, that leaked intel was from the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is almost its own Federal Reserve. They kind of do their own stuff for the entire military-industrial complex. They are not bound by the Department of National Intelligence, of which Tulsi Gabbard is the head of. And meanwhile, Pete Hegseth has been trying to deal with the huge problem of leakers. People that will leak information to the mainstream media, they'll leak information out of the Defense Department, thereby making America a whole lot less safe. And let's actually do a little thought experiment here. Let's say our wonderful B-2 bombers, those great Freedom Doritos, flew over and did minimal damage. Okay? Let's assume that it did minimal damage. The reality of those weapons, however, of what was dropped upon the Iranian nuclear sites, there were 3 of them. That means that there's no traffic getting in or out for months. Pete Hegseth is right. In order to deal with these places, in order to get them up and running again, you're going to need a shovel. Or in this case, a whole bunch of excavators. So here's what is more important to me than the minimal potential impact, all right? This is what I'm going on. Fresh satellite imagery released by Maxar Technologies shows significant damage of 3 of Iran's key nuclear sites, Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, just a few days after the B-2 bombers conducted strikes ordered by President Donald Trump. I'm going off of satellite imagery here, and based on what I'm seeing, yeah, that looks like significant damages. Now, again, this is the minimal aspect. Let's assume that it's all rubble. Let's assume that the problem is all on top and trying to get to these places underneath. For decades, as a matter of fact, ever since World War II, there was even an attempt on the Rock of Gibraltar, where the British had plans that if it was ever invaded, that six British troopers could stay inside of a sealed bunker with just enough visibility outside with water and supplies that they'll never have to worry about anything coming from above. Our own U.S. air defense systems, as a matter of fact, I believe where they train U.S. pilots is out in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And it's deep within inside mountain bunkers. So it's understandable that traditional weapons cannot penetrate that amount of rock, but it can make sure that things aren't going in and out. Again, that's the minimum potential of what was happening with the B-2 stealth bomber attacks on these fortifications. And let's assume the maximum. That is, the Iranian nuclear program was completely destroyed. Remember, folks, the current government of Iran, even though its young people despise the current government, even though people that I have met who have fled Iran despise the current government. Again, I have met a whole bunch of successful Persians. They're wonderful people, but they were kicked out because they were successful people. The current regime doesn't really like intelligent people. That's the sad reality. And they cannot be trusted with one of the most important weapons in human history. We dropped the sun twice on Japan. Not out of malice, but out of an attempt to show what these weapons can actually do. Because mere scientific testing isn't going to be enough for the human psyche to fully comprehend. And we dropped something that was not quite at that level on these 3 sites, turning all of the mountainsides from mountains into valleys. What we're currently seeing is at the worst case, that it's going to be impossible to get in and out of those facilities for the next couple of months. The best case scenario, which I'm more likely to bet on, is that these facilities were completely eradicated. And the mainstream media will go with a leaked presser, a leaked document that says, well, maybe we didn't do as much damage. I'm sorry, that's not enough to go on. And for the mainstream media to pick up on this nonsense and try to run with it just shows that they care more about muckraking journalism than they do actual journalism. Trump and Hegseth is right to call these folks out and to their faces. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. My name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Politibrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Until then, y'all have a good one.